You're about to enter the Red Shoe Lounge, a community of like-minded individuals, ladies looking to live their best life. You'll hear conversations that encourage you to explore and inquire and challenge your beliefs and maybe even change some long-held perceptions. But in the end, you'll be excited, you'll be fulfilled, and finally living that level 10 life. Now your hosts of the Red Shoe Lounge, Louise and Mara.
Hello and welcome back to Red Shoe Lounge. Good afternoon, Mara.
Good afternoon. Well, good morning for me.
Good morning for you. Good afternoon from me. Yes. In this glorious English sunshine today, which is why I'm in a different place because it's stunning over here today. And we want to talk to you guys today about shadow work and why it's important in terms of really understanding yourself more fully. Living from a space where you're not trying to be somebody that you're not, and really about accepting all parts of yourself. I think there's a really big belief system that we should be a certain way, and there are some characteristics that really aren't nice. And I remember listening to, now who was it? I can see his face, Deepak Chopra, talking about the fact that everybody has these darker aspects of themselves, because where there is light, there will be shadow. You know, we've got the yin and the yang. And it's not necessarily about, you know, we're not necessarily wanting to act on those parts, but there certainly needs to be an acceptance of those parts and actually finding a way to understand how do they serve us for our higher purpose. So Mara knows that one of my all-time favorite books, and I think probably yours as well, right?
Right.
That I found quite early on in my journey is Dark Side of the Light Chasers by Debbie Ford. An absolutely phenomenal book. Oh, there we go. Mara is showing it for those of you on the podcast.
For those of you watching from YouTube, yeah.
You can actually see it. And it was a real game changer for me. And I think mainly because it wasn't just the reading of the book, it was doing the exercises. It's the same with everything. You know, you could go get a coach, you could go to the gym, but if you're going to go to the gym and sit and watch people on the treadmill, you're not going to get any results, right?
Right.
And the same with the books. If you do go by the book, I would highly recommend that you go through and actually do the exercises and see what comes up for you. And we got talking about this before we got onto the call, because Mara had a very good experience with it yesterday, which we're going to talk to you about in just 1 second. But Mara, when you first read that book, what did you start to understand more about those shadow aspects of yourself and what it meant for you?
Well, I was actually introduced to the book by you and had done shadow work with you before I actually read the book. But what you learn with the whole experience is that you have to embrace the dark side in order to get to the light. So you have to meet the dark and find out what the purpose is, or forgive it, or figure out why it's there in order to get to the other side of it.
Yeah. And I think what's important to, you know, so if you're really already confused about what shadow work is, it would probably be pertinent to explain that. If you just imagine the shadows are the parts of yourself that either you're suppressing, you're not allowing them to see the light, you're not acknowledging them, you might be ashamed of them or fearful of them. And a lot of that comes from your upbringing, the things that people have told you that are acceptable and are not acceptable. And I'll give you just an example. As you probably know, the British are very well known for saying please and thank you. Like, we are excessively thank you people. And we apologize for bumping into people. You know, we apologize even if somebody hits us, we apologize. And we queue a lot. And I remember when I was working in banking in London when I was much, much younger, and there was a lot of Europeans worked in there. And it was the first time I realized that they had different cultures to us. So a lot of people didn't say thank you. Like, you'd hold a door open and they'd just walk through it. And you'd be like, how rude, you know, and you're making that judgment. And I remember when I went to college, and there was a woman there that was from, I can't remember what country it was from now, but I want to say like something like Africa or something. And when she first came over to the country and she first started learning to drive, she said she was going into a car park and she couldn't understand why all these people were like one behind the other. So she just drove straight to the front of the queue. She didn't understand that there was a queuing system going on. And so a lot of the shadow parts, you're only making them a shadow because of what people have told you is acceptable and what's not acceptable. Or you've made a decision based on if you acted a certain way and you were reprimanded by it, or you was somebody shamed you in that moment, then you will kind of suppress that and hide it and believe that that's not a really good part of you. So shadow work is all about actually, they make you whole in a way. And, you know, it's about really accepting that side of yourself. So what we're going to talk about today mainly is one particular exercise in the book. And I don't know whether she calls it the bus exercise, or whether I just call it the bus exercise. I can't really remember.
I think she calls it something like that. It's been a while since I've read it, but I think she calls it something like that.
Yeah. So the idea being is that in this particular exercise, you take yourself up and you get onto this bus, and on the bus, it's full of the shadow aspects of your personality. So they're your sub personalities. And in the exercise, she encourages you to just just to be around and just like see who wants to speak to you. You might see somebody straight away. I remember the first time I did it, I knew exactly where I had to go and sit on the bus. I had a bus full of characters from TV, which was bizarre. And I have had everything from a spaceship to an American yellow school bus to a London bus. I've had horrible the elevators to get up there. I've had everything from a smelly urinated lift in a car park to like a plush Waldorf Astoria type lift. So it really is about letting yourself go through that meditation and just let your mind go wherever it wants to go, because you'll always get what you need from this exercise. And the idea being is you just kind of open up a dialogue between you and this sub part of your personality. For those of you already wanting to switch off, don't.
You're like, what the hell are you talking about? Yeah. You guys sound like weirdos.
Just because our brain sees everything metaphorically and in pictures. And we're all based on energy. So when we're having these conversations, it's with a higher aspect of ourselves. It's with not with our reptilian, ego-centered, front brain that's very logical. It's with the higher aspect of ourself. So, you might want to do this a few times, and we're going to give you a gift at the end so you can try it for yourself. That's a bribe to stay, by the way.
It's a very generous gift at that.
and just to experience what might go on. And like I say, I believe that some of my biggest emotional shifts that have led to some of my biggest growth have come from this bus exercise, without a doubt. So I want you, just yesterday, Mara's going to tell you what she did yesterday. She had a very lovely experience, and I'm so booking myself one for next week. So we'll do a live on that. But can you let people know what happened for you yesterday and what happened when you did the shadow work?
Yes, I'd love to, because I'm telling you, it sounds so cliche, but I mean to tell you, I felt like a different person walking out of that. I don't want to say it was life-changing, maybe a little altering, but it definitely was a very positive experience for me. So I went to what's called a float, where you float in salt water. And I believe they use some sort of, I don't know what they use. I could guess. I'm not even going to speculate what kind of salt it is. It's some kind of fantastic salt. Okay. I want to say it's Epsom salt, but I'm not positive. Anyway, it's salt. It's mostly salt. It's salt water. And you go into this cocoon shaped pod and you float. Nice. And you really do float. You almost have to force yourself. I mean, you're not forcing yourself, but you have to force yourself to sit up, because you just naturally float and your body just feels, I felt like I was in space. Like I was I just let gravity go, and you just floated in this most serene, wonderful pod. You could choose to have music or not to have music. If you choose not to have music, they do give you this really soft meditative type music for the first 10 minutes, and then it clicks off. And then you're in silence. And I was in silence for 90 minutes.
Wow.
And I'm like, at first I thought, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do this. And then I just let myself be. And then anytime my mind started to wander to, oh, I really should be doing laundry, or what am I doing here? This is really weird. I'm laying here naked in this pod. Is somebody coming in? Like, every time my mind tried to wander, I thought, Mara, you need to come back to why you're here. You need to just focus on nothing if you have to, just be here. So I decided, because I really like shadow work, that whenever I feel like, whenever I feel like I kind of need to work on something, I was going to say in a dark place, but I wasn't in a dark place. But whenever I feel like I kind of need to work on something, I typically will try to do some shadow work. So I decided, all right, you got 90 minutes. What the hell? Let's do it. So for me, you described like being in an elevator. I want to get in that elevator quick and go. So it's like, whew, I'm almost taking, like to take a rocket. My elevator goes up so fast. I just want to get to that bus, damn it. So I have a hard time like slowing down in that elevator process and getting me there. I'm like, come on, hurry, get there. Just get there and let that elevator go, right? And then my bus is always a typical school bus, which is kind of odd to me because I never rode a school bus before and when I was a kid. And it's different for me. Like, I have to try to make sure that my ego or my conscious brain doesn't try to create for me. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, just let it go. Even if I don't see anything, I just have to let that go. So yesterday, I wasn't sure who I was going to visit in my bus. I show up to the bus and I'm holding a little girl's hand who I know is me. I can't see her face. And again, my conscious mind wants to try to create a face, but then I was like, you don't have to create the face, Mara. It's okay that you don't see a face. It's just about a presence. So I knew that this little girl was me and I was holding her hand. And we were both standing there waiting for the bus. The bus pulls up, the doors open. And also for me, like when you and I have talked about this before, you've described like seeing faces and stuff like that. Mine are always shadows. They're always black shadows with no face. And I just kind of walked up to this one with this little girl. I'm holding her hand and I'm like, hey, Fear, how's it going? And I don't know why, because that's not what I went in there necessarily looking for. It's just the first thing that came up. But all these shadows were in this bus. And my bus is always the little bus too. It's never like the big school bus. Like over here, I don't know if you've seen, like we have short buses and long buses. Okay. Mine is the short bus, always. It's never, and it's not always full, but this time it was full of all these shadows. And I just walked right up to the first one in the front and said, hey, Fear. And Fear says to me, my name is not Fear, it's Faith, Mara. Call me Faith. So I automatically thought to myself, when I have fear, I need to think about faith. Mm-hmm. When I fear something, just have faith. When I fear, just have faith. So I just walked out of that bus thinking, okay, it's faith over fear, which again sounds a little cliche, but because you hear it, but truly it's helped me. Anything that has come up for me, even just in the past, 12 hours or so, since going there, I think you have nothing to be afraid of. You need to have faith. So when you have fear, have faith. So that's what I came out of. And I told the little girl, just have faith. It's okay. Have faith. And we just kind of walked out of it. And again, like through the exercise before, like you want to slowly walk out of the bus and go back to the elevator and go down. I'm racing to get out. I'm like, all right, let's go. I'm done. I've gotten what I needed. I need to go. But I know that experience is different for everybody. Like for you take that slow ride up and that slow ride down.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I think it's, like I say, I remember clearly having one of the experiences where it was an old car. The car park isn't even there anymore. It's one I used to go to with my mum and dad when they used to take us into town when we were small, and it always smelled of pee. It was like a disgusting council car park, and I'm like, ooh, who the hell am I going to meet on the bus if this is the lift I'm going up in? It was
right.
But I think there's a couple of things I want to talk to about that. Is that the first one is that for those of you that this is brand new, don't panic, like Mara said about, am I seeing this? Am I making it up? That's your logical mind. And I think in that moment, I would advise you just to maybe like imagine you've got a blackboard rubber or a whiteboard rubber, and you just clear the screen and just carry on. I know from my experience, I've worked with a huge amount of people on removing limiting beliefs unconsciously, and we'll finish sessions and they'll go, I don't feel any different. I'm like, well, that's no surprise yet, right? Might take a bit of time to integrate that one, but because we learn unconsciously and we unlearn unconsciously. And yes, we have those moments when we have big ahas like you did. And you know what I love, even with you recounting that message, and I've heard you say that 3 times now, when you say, don't call me Fear, Mara, my name's Faith, like your voice changes. It's like it is that whole different aspect to you. So right. just with that, just let, like Mara said, just let yourself go, and trust that whatever happens, whatever you see or don't see, whatever you hear or don't hear, something is absolutely happening. Something is happening, and this work is cumulative. So the more you do it, the bigger the impact it has on you, and you're going to start to see actual manifestations of the new belief systems. And something else I want to say.
True. That's very true. Because, when I thought, okay, what am I going to do in here for 90 minutes? Well, I'm just going to do some shadow work. Might as well. I didn't feel like I needed to work on anything in particular. Yeah. Like, well, I'm laying here for 90 minutes. Let's just do some shadow work. Like, I've never meditated without music or guided. Like, so I thought, how am I going to meditate? What the hell am I going to do?
Yeah.
So and that's just what it was. And it could have been 5 minutes. It could have been 50 minutes I was doing it. I don't really know.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole point, isn't it? And just to give you another experience. So because Mara gets in and out really quick, one of the things that I do is I'm really aware of coming out of the lift and walking through the park and just seeing what's around and getting on the bus. And I think and I actually wrote a blog about this. So if you go Google it, you'll probably find, if you Google like Louise Cartwright and self-worth or Susan Self-Worth, you might find it. Or actually, I could just put a link in the bio, in the blog, in the notes.
Yeah, just do that.
And I do believe that this bit of shadow work was probably the thing that started to really change my money mindset. And so, very long story short, I get on the bus and I'm sat there, and this particular time, I couldn't. Like, a little bit like you, there wasn't anybody that like jumped out at me. I didn't really see anybody, so I sat down at the front of the bus, right behind the driver. And I'm like, well, come on then. Okay, someone's got to be on here to talk to me. And this little girl comes up next to me, and she wouldn't even say anything. So, and I started to get irritated. And I knew her name was Susan. I don't know how, I just knew her name was Susan. And anyway, what I tend to do with my bus stuff is I get off the bus and we go somewhere. We go back to the park and have a walk or an ice cream. This particular time, I've just remembered this, we were at Serendipity, New York. That's where we went for ice cream. So me and this young girl were having ice cream, and but when we were in Serendipity in the ice cream parlor, like I couldn't see her, right? Well, I could sort of see her, but I couldn't see her, and I couldn't hear her. She wasn't saying anything, and anyway, so I'm chatting away, and like, you need to make yourself visible because like, everyone thinks I'm crazy. I'm talking to myself. No one can see you, and still nothing. And I got really angry. And I remember leaning across the table at her and going, "You need to make yourself visible because I can't see you." And then I just heard very quietly, "Louise, everybody else can see me. You're the only one that can't." Ooh. And she was Susan Self-Worth. And yeah, so she was basically that. My message there was like, everybody else sees your worth. You're the only one in the world that doesn't see how much you're worth. And it was one of those, right? I've even got goosebumps just recounting that. Yeah. So that's how powerful it can be. And that's, and you can imagine a little bit like Mara's, "Don't call me Fear, Mara, call me Faith." You can imagine how that kind of that had the impact. So please do give it a go with the gift that we're going to give you at the end. But what we want to talk about as well, leading on from that, is what really fear actually is. Now, this is my perception. My perception is that we're not really fearful. We don't fear judgment per se. We don't fear failure per se. What we fear is the emotional discomfort that comes from that. So, if you, I don't know, say for instance, you were single and you wanted to ask somebody out on a date and they said no, you're not fearful of the no, you're fearful of the physical and emotional reaction that's going to come from that. the shame, the embarrassment, and all that. You know, because at the end of the day, unless you are being chased and your life is in danger, what we experience really isn't a form of fear. It is just, we are desperate to not feel emotional discomfort. And the truth of the matter is, and again, my perception is that the biggest growth, the absolute biggest growth and the biggest learnings come from having the courage to feel that emotional discomfort and learn from it. What do you think?
Aha. I love that, because it's true. We don't have anything really, unless we're being chased by a bear, we don't have anything to be scared of. And it's that emotional discomfort that we don't want to feel. We don't want to be embarrassed. We don't want to feel, we don't want people to make fun of us, or we don't want, to feel rejected or anything like that. That's exactly, it's the emotion.
It is the emotion. And I think the more I do this work, the more I realize that it's, even though it's probably linked back to something that happened when you were very, very small. So if you've ever been, I remember being at school, I don't remember, but I remember the shame of one of my English teachers telling me that my stories were way too long and boring. And I used to love to write. Until she said that. I remember the embarrassment of being the fattest girl in the changing room at school, and not wanting to get undressed and putting my PE kit on and finding ways to get out of PE, particularly because my twin sister was very athletic and very skinny. And so looking back now, you might think that wouldn't bother you, but I think we feel it so intensely when we're younger. So when we are in a situation where we feel we might have that shame, that embarrassment, the ridicule, anything like that, it's like we're wired because of how painful it was when we were smaller to do everything, all costs, to avoid that pain, right? And shame, I think particularly for women, guilt and shame is a huge driver, of avoidance.
Yeah,
right?
I would agree with that. And my shadow work is not always. A lot of the times I have this little girl with me. A lot of the times. And I don't remember a lot of my childhood at all. Is it because I have a crap memory? Maybe. Is it because I've suppressed something? Lots of things? Maybe. I don't know what it is, but I seem to always have that little girl with me. And it could just be that mothering in me too. Like, this just came into my awareness. It could be that mothering. Like all I ever wanted to do was grow up and be a mom. That's all I ever wanted to do. So, and they used to call me Mother Mara in high school.
Wow.
They used to so it could be that's totally what it is.
But
totally what it is.
Yeah. And I think, again, there are some amazing memes and stuff that you'll see on Facebook, and the reaction, and there's one of the pictures where I think there's somebody sat down, like with their head in their hands, clearly in a bad place, but in their head, it's their child, it's their inner child. Now, for me, that I'm at the stage now where I really want to encourage people to say, yeah, it's okay to go back and to be aware of these things. But actually, we're grown-ups now, and in order to move forward more quickly, we have to decide today that we can generate the courage, we can generate the resilience, we can generate the faith, we can generate I'm going to rewrite that, right? We have that power to consciously drive our thoughts to promote us to do action that helps regardless, and that's how you grow strength. And I remember listening to an amazing podcast episode with it was Russell Brand interviewing Tony Robbins. If you get a chance to listen to it, oh my fucking god, it's incredible. And Russell Brand, you know who Russell Brand is, right?
Yes, I do.
Right.
I think we should share this on our Facebook wall. So Russell Brand, as you know, he's not scared of talking. He's got an incredibly acute mind, and his conversations are intense. But when he was with Tony Robbins, he was clearly looking for guidance, in terms of, way more than me, dude. I'm not going to get into that conversation. And Tony Robbins said something to him about, well, you've clearly got a very strong will. How did you develop that? And Russell Brand said, I don't know. You tell me how I developed that. And Tony Robbins went on to say, no one's born like that.
You only develop something because you're pushing back against it. Like, you need that courage to get through that. You know, how would going back to shadow and light, how would you even know what it felt like to be courageous if you hadn't done it? How would you know when you needed to be courageous? Right.
It goes with the same, like, you don't know love until you've experienced hate, or you don't know. You know, you can't experience the good without knowing what the bad feels like too, because then you know what the good feels like.
Well, that's it. I mean, that's exactly Brené Brown's, primary conversation there, isn't it? You know, if you want to if you want to experience deep joy, you must be able to experience the pain, because if you're always holding something back, if you're always leaving something on the table, you'll never know that intense joy, because you're waiting for something to go wrong. And, I want to just share, I'm not going to say, talk too much about it, but, Mara knows I had a really, really dark weekend last weekend. It seems to be a bit of a theme going on with our resilience at the moment, Mara.
I know.
And, having suffered from really bad depression many years ago, it was the first time probably in about 5 years that I thought, oh my God, what's happened to me? Am I going backwards? Am I going crazy? Have I been hit by the mad stick again? And it was challenging. So thank God for my friendship with Mara and a couple of other people that helped me out. And I came out of the other side, and I thought, what, excuse my language again, but what the fuck was that all about? What I know part of it was relationships, and we're actually going to dive into relationships in one of the next podcasts. But it was more than that. And as I came out of the other side, as I came out of the cocoon as a butterfly, there was a remembrance that actually, alongside of all this stuff that I'm dealing with in relationships, was the fact that I had a theta healing session the week before. And the week before that, I'd had a distance healing session with one of my colleagues. And that stuff is magic shit, and it stirs stuff up. And Mara, if you can make a note that we're going to put up that book, that page in the book. So my darling Mara sent me just an excerpt from the 5 a.m. club that, wow, it just explained, it just reminded me of the depth of, when you're growing, there are going to be times when you experience this death and rebirth. And it'd been a long time since I've had that kind of level, and I've forgotten how challenging it is. So Mara sent me that as I was coming out the other side, and I was like, oh my God, how did I miss that? And then the final thing I kind of want to share there is that I messaged my coach on the Tuesday and was like, yeah, I'm kind of back in the land of the living. I've come back out of that space. And she was celebrating with me and congratulating me. But she said, before I go, Louise, I just want to remind you. She said that before the caterpillar turns into a butterfly, it turns into liquid. It completely breaks down, and then it reforms and becomes a butterfly. And my first thought was, you're a fucking liar.
Yeah, so and I'm going to Google that shit.
I Googled that shit, and it's absolutely true. That before the caterpillar turns into the butterfly, it digests itself. It secretes enzymes in digestive cells, and it becomes like a pulp. And then it grows into one of these amazingly beautiful things that we see flying around. And if Mother Nature says that's what happens, just like in our garden, everything dies in the winter. Everything. Well, not everything, but most things die. And everything's bleak for a while. But everything's actually underneath. The magic is happening, right? Yeah. And it's about being able to be in those places, and just like you said last week, like, I just want to fucking feel it, because we're so driven to try and find the way out, or get out of it as quickly as possible, or someone say pull your socks up, or what are you, like 10 years old, are you sulking? And your voice kept going through my head like, just fucking feel it, Louise, just fucking feel it, Louise. So I completely redecorated my daughter's bedroom. I ate amazing food. I laid around on the sofa a lot. I drank a bottle of wine, and eventually I started to feel the light coming back. And we just kind of want you to know that's all part of this work, is that the deeper you go into it, the deeper sometimes the breakdowns feel. But when you come out, you literally you're a butterfly. You're flying higher than so many other people. You're in a more beautiful state, a better energy. And it's no surprise now that when people see pictures of me from 20 years ago, they're like, "Ooh, you look well old." You look younger now. I'm like, I know. I'm like, what's that film? Button.
Oh,
Benjamin Button. Yeah, I'm like
Yep.
Benjamin Button. So that's what we wanted to share with you today about shadow work. Is there anything else that you want to share from your experience of shadow work, or even your experience of kind of navigating that deep fear?
No.
Fair enough. I really hope we've.
No, I think we've kind of covered it, only because, it's, first of all, everybody's experience is going to be just a little bit different. And, I don't want anybody to feel like if they haven't experienced it the way you or I did, that it's wrong, because it's not.
Yeah,
Totally.
totally.
So you have to try it, and more than once, and kind of see what comes through for you and see how you feel. And my biggest piece of advice about it is, don't let your conscious get in the way. Just think what you think, even if it's pink rainbows and purple unicorns. Think it like it's okay.
You know what just came up to me there, and I'm going to say it because we can do it explicit on iTunes. But when you said pink unicorns and purple and our dildos came up, I don't know why. So I'm going to put that down for another podcast. But
yeah, we might need to talk about that.
But so what we're going to do is we're going to gift you something that I normally say for my clients, which is a very, very short meditation that takes them through this shadow exercise. So I will let you access that. We're going to put it in the show notes for you. Give it a go. That's your Red Shoe Action. And we would love for you to come onto the Facebook page, drop us a link in YouTube, even on on our website underneath the podcast, and let us know who you met in the Red Shoe Action, and obviously hashtag it like that so we can get around social media. But it's a really valuable, powerful, transformational tool. And my biggest bit of advice to you is, do not underestimate what happens, even if you've got no concept of what's going on, because it's just perfect. So Red Shoe Action, go do the meditation and let us know how you get on.
Oh, I can't wait to hear those, actually. And what a generous gift from you. Thank you, Louise.
You're welcome.
Ladies, remember, your life is your choice, and choose it wisely.
This has been the Red Shoe Lounge. Join the community and leave a comment with your thoughts on this episode. Our Facebook page is Red Shoe Lounge. You can also visit redshoelounge.com for our bank of previous episodes, all jam-packed with curious conversations encouraging you to explore and inquire. Thanks for listening, and join us next time on the journey to your Level 10 life.